Both Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump are campaigning in western swing states Friday. Harris rallied in Arizona for the second day in a row, taking hits at her opponent while speaking at an event for Republicans supporting Harris. Trump, meanwhile, traveled to Nevada after speaking in Aurora, Colorado earlier in the day. The Republican nominee previously pushed false conspiracy theories about the city being overtaken by Venezuela migrant gang members.
But my message today is very simple. No person who has inflicted the violence and terror that Kamala Harris has inflicted on this community can ever be allowed to become the President of the United States. We're not going to let it happen.
There's this kind of backward thinking coming from some folks that suggests that the measure of the strength of a leader is based on who you beat down, instead of what we know, which is the real measure of the strength of a leader is based on who you lift up. That's strength.
Two very different messages, different tones. CBS News chief election and campaign correspondent Robert Costa joins me now. So, Bob, Colorado, it's not a swing state. Harris is comfortably carrying it, just as Democrats have since 2008. So what is Trump hoping to accomplish by being there?
It's great to be with you. It's evident, based on former President Trump's comments about immigration and border security, that he's trying to close this campaign on that particular front. He wants voters in swing states, maybe not necessarily Colorado, even though he is there in terms of being physically present for an event. But he wants these issues of migration, border security to come to the fore of the campaign in this closing stretch. There's a belief inside the upper echelon of his campaign that if he talks about economic pain and immigration in this closing lap, that he has a real shot of winning back the White House. So it's about bringing a spotlight to these issues, even if Colorado remains more of a blue/purple state.
Well, let's talk about an actual swing state, Arizona. Harris is there. What's her strategy?
For Vice President Harris, this is about trying to be competitive in Arizona. Democrats were competitive there in recent cycles. There's an expectation that Democrats have a real shot at winning Arizona this time around. The Senate candidate in Arizona, Ruben Gallego, a congressman, is doing very well in his race against Republican Kari Lake. So she wants to bolster the Democratic energy in that state. And she wants to counter what former President Trump is doing, I'm told by her aides, by talking about immigration on her terms, talking about how she and President Biden have pushed for a bipartisan legislation in Congress that was stalled over the past few years. And so she wants to make sure she's out there on the issue Trump's talking about all the time with her own message.
And let's talk about another former president, in this case, Barack Obama. He was rallying for Vice President Harris for the first time. It's kind of the final stretch. So what really stood out to you about his messaging, and how effective do you think he is out there on the campaign trail for her?
It was a long drive back to Washington, D.C. for me last night from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Sure. I covered former President Obama as he spoke at the University of Pittsburgh to a group of college students and Democrats from Western Pennsylvania. It's clear by listening to former President Obama that he wants to motivate Democrats, and he wants to try to stitch together his own coalition from 2008 and 2012 and have that coalition come together for Vice President Harris. That entails college students and includes rank-and-file Democrats, suburban Democrats, moderates, urban voters, Black Americans, Latino Americans, and others in places like Western Pennsylvania. And he knows that Trump has real support in that region. And so by getting the Obama voter to be reminded that the Democratic Party still stands with them, especially working people, labor members, that's really important at this point for Vice President Harris.
All right, Robert Costa, thank you.
Thank you.